Let's get to our next guest, Conservative Angela Box and State Representative Ron Reynolds. Guys, we saw many programs created here in the United States as a result of his death 5 years ago, back in May of 2020. One of those programs was diversity, equity, and inclusion, DEI, and that has become a dirty term in America. As of late, we have seen the Trump administration create executive orders, essentially banning it around the country. What is the problem with DEI according to the Trump administration, Ron?
Well, according to the Trump administration, it's not merit-based. But here's what it is, Isiah, quite just straight talk. It is basically anybody who was black, brown, a woman, then they were a DEI hire. That means that automatically they were somehow given that job because of their race or their gender or their color, right? But I have another definition for DEI. It's definitely earned it, because if you're black, you're brown, you're a woman, and you've ascended to the CEO position or whatever you've done that gave you that position, then you definitely earned it, because you had to be twice as qualified as the average white man. But President Trump he's intimidated by black folks. This is anti-black and brown. I want to ask him so bad, do you have a problem with the diversity, the equity, or is it the inclusion? Or is it all of the above? Because basically, the people that were in many levels of government, at high level positions, he fired the black and brown people and replaced them with white men that were substantially less qualified. Like in terms of, you compare resumes, pedigree, you look at many of the people, the Department of Defense, Department of Education, you can name all the cabinet level positions that were replaced with white men that are less qualified. So I think that this is an affront upon many of the gains that we made, and our diversity is our strength, and President Trump is trying to make America great again by making it more white male again. That's one of the way I see it.
Angela, I'm sure you don't agree with that.
I do not, but I will say, let us bow down to St. George Floyd of Fentanyl, because boy, oh boy, if we're saying that is the level, that is the bar that black people want to aspire to, God help us all.
And I think, Angela, it's less about George Floyd and how he was treated as a human being, and not about his history and where he came from, or any of the drugs that he may have done.
Okay, so before we
get into... But let's not get into George Floyd. Let's get into DEI.
Well, I hope we can get into George Floyd a little bit, because, one thing about Democrats is they don't really change their stripes. I mean, if you look at Kilmar Abrego Garcia, it's the flavor of the month for the Democrats of the criminal. And 5 years ago, it was the George Floyd, the criminal. And we had the entire world was on fire because of it. And, Nancy Pelosi likes to kneel and put her kente cloth on and, just stand in solidarity. DEI, if I was a black person, okay, I would be offended if I was hired simply because I'm checking a box, a diversity box. I mean, as a woman, I know I'm good, okay? Then I know I'm here because I'm good, and you're here because you're good. But if you know that you were hired based on immutable characteristics over which you have no control, I mean, that is an insult to people. Now, on the point about the Trump administration, I think you're speaking of the people in the Defense Department, the Navy. The reason those people were fired is because they were not good at their jobs. I mean, I don't think President Trump, people like to think he's a narcissist or whatever. I mean, maybe he is, maybe he's not. I mean, everyone has a touch of the narcissism if you live in the world at all today. But I think Donald Trump's strength is that he surrounds himself with people that he knows can do the job, that he doesn't have to mollycoddle or micromanage all the time. He's not threatened by people who are powerful. That's why he picked J.D. Vance, for example, because J.D. Vance is brilliant. That's why he has the cabinet he has, because they're all exceptional human beings, not because they check a box. And so, if we're saying that George Floyd, of all people, is someone we should be looking to as a bar for black and brown people to aspire to, I think that is incredibly insulting.
Reynolds, for those who are wondering, and the national statistics show and indicate that the biggest benefactor of DEI programs were white women.
Yeah, exactly.
You
They
know,
don't want to
and
talk about
so
that part.
your thoughts on
that
that?
part, because the poster boy is people who look like you and I, Isaiah. Anytime they talk about DEI, they want to put a picture of a black face so that you can dog whistle that this is about these black folks taking over jobs. Many of the people that voted for Trump thought that black people were taking over the jobs and brown people were taking over the jobs that were less qualified. A plane crashes. What did Trump say? It's a DEI hire. Something goes wrong with this or that, he blames DEI. Never any type of substantiation or any facts to back it up. When you say DEI, it's code word for anti-black. Therefore, why should we hire black people when they're only there because they're black? Not that they were overqualified, not because they went to school, earned degrees, had worked very hard to pull themselves up from nothing. That is
I don't have a
generally
problem
9
with that
times out of
at
10, but when you assume that a person is a DEI hire because they're black, they shouldn't have to justify their existence by saying that, oh, you only got to check that box because you only got that job because you checked that box that you're black. No. That is nonsense. That's what we're seeing. Our diversity is our strength. President Trump has taken us back. No. He's ended DEI. It is reverberating to corporations like Target, where they're losing so much because of people who look like me are saying, you know what, I'm not spending my money at a company that doesn't value diversity. Other companies, they've seen their stocks go down, like Tesla and others, because they're following this path of Trump in this downward anti-DEI, anti-black type of mentality. So Isaiah, we're at a dark day in our country. We were making progress. The only reason why we even refer to George Floyd, because it was a reflection point in our country where people said it was a watershed moment, like when Emmett Till was lynched in Mississippi, and it led to other things. George Floyd's death made America come to grips with the fact that there are still disparities within our criminal justice system. When people saw from a country police officer putting a knee on George Floyd's neck, it led to a racial awakening.
All right, let's hear
The only reason Derek Chauvin is in jail right now is because he put his knee on George Floyd, who ate all his fentanyl, thank you very much. 11 micrograms found in his blood. You need 2 micrograms to die. He ate all of his fentanyl. And then Derek Chauvin had the temerity in 2020 to arrest a man and smirk into a camera. That is why he's sitting in jail right now. Facts are important, okay?
Let's get back on track, guys. When we talk about DEI, and this is our last question, when we talk about DEI, we saw many companies like Target, Walmart, and others embrace it, but then they dumped it when the Trump administration came through. Does it make it for a better or worse America? Representative Reynolds?
I make it for a worse America. This is a dark day in our country. I didn't live in the 50s or the 60s, but I saw the struggle of my ancestors and my forefathers whose shoulders I stand on. Donald Trump has taken us back to dark days. We are reimagining Jim Crow in a different language. Now it's called DEI. That's what it's called, anti-DEI. And so it's sad that we're going back when we were making some progress under Obama, under Clinton, under many other, even George Bush, we were making progress. But Isaiah, I know many people that have lost positions that were competent, capable, and qualified simply because they were black and they had these positions. It is awful what Donald Trump is doing to America in 2025.
All right,
there's no proof that anything he said is true. If someone was fired based on the color of their skin, that is illegal. Discrimination is discrimination is discrimination. And all the Trump administration is doing is saying, we're going to eliminate that discrimination piece. Now, when you talk about Target, the reason Target got in so much trouble is because they were shoving pornography and transgender crap in front of children. That's why Target is in the position they're in. And corporate America, just like higher education, Harvard, for example, are like the arbiters of DEI. They have been explicit in discriminating people based on immutable characteristics, and that day has come to an end. So I love it.
Angela Botts, State Representative Ron Reynolds, thank you both for joining us.